Here is something most doctors will never mention to you during an ordinary checkup. In one large European study of adults over the age of 70, more than 1 in 4 of them, almost 27%, were quietly low on iron, not diagnosed with any disease. Not sick in any obvious way, just tired. And that word, tired, is far bigger than most of us realize. Because iron is the mineral your blood uses to carry oxygen to every corner of your body. When it runs low, every single cell starts working on half power. That is the afternoon slump that hits you like a wave around 3 o'clock. It is the strange breathlessness climbing a single flight of stairs that never used to bother you. It is the cold hands, the foggy memory, the feeling that your get up and go simply got up and left. And here is the part that surprises almost everyone. The foods that fight that kind of tiredness best are not new, not exotic, and not sold to you in an expensive little bottle. They are foods written on the pages of your own Bible, thousands of years old, and many of them are probably sitting in your kitchen right now. By the end of our few minutes together, you will know why a single bowl of one humble stew was once worth a man's entire inheritance, his whole future traded away in one desperate moment. You will hear about a prophet so exhausted that he begged God to let him die, and the simple meal an angel gave him that carried him 40 days and 40 nights. And you will learn one small trick, completely free, and taking about 10 seconds, that can dramatically increase how much iron your body actually absorbs from these very foods, a trick the ancient people practiced without ever knowing the science behind it. So what we are going to do is count down together through the biblical foods richest in iron, the ones that gently help your body fight fatigue. For each one, I will tell you why it mattered to the people of Scripture, why it matters to your body today, and exactly how to eat it. And there is something quietly beautiful in all of this, because the same Lord who hung the sun and the stars in place also filled the fields and the orchards with precisely what our bodies would one day need. That is not an accident. There is wisdom in it. So stay with me all the way to the end, because the food at number 1 is tied to one of the most shocking trades in the whole Bible. A man who signed away everything for one bowl of it, and I don't want you to miss that story. And when we reach the middle of our list, I will stop and tell you about that exhausted prophet, because I have a feeling it may change the way you look at your own weariness. Let's begin. Now we come to number 8, and it is barley. If you have ever felt overlooked, barley is your grain. Because in the ancient world, barley was the food of ordinary, hardworking people, while the wealthy ate their finer wheat. And yet look at how God used it. It is in a barley field that the story of Ruth unfolds, the young widow gleaning the leftover grain behind the harvesters. And it was the barley harvest that brought her into the path of Boaz. A story of loyalty and redemption that runs straight down into the family line of King David, and, in time, to Christ himself. Barley is also named among the 7 foods that Deuteronomy chapter 8 lists as the glory of the promised land. And when a young boy in the Gospel of John offered up his little lunch of 5 loaves, those loaves were barley, the plain bread of the poor. And from that humble basket, the Lord fed 5,000. Now here is why barley matters to you. Whole barley carries a steady dose of iron, along with a rich load of fiber. And that fiber matters because it means the energy from barley is released slowly and gently into your bloodstream, without the sharp spike and hard crash you get from white bread and sugary snacks. For an older body that wants steady, even energy through the whole afternoon, that slow release is a real gift. The simplest way to bring it back into your life is to let a handful of barley simmer into your soups and stews, the way your grandmother might have, or to cook it soft in the morning, like a warm porridge with a little honey. It is humble, it is cheap, and it has been feeding tired, faithful people for 3,000 years. Next, at number 7, we have the date. You have surely heard the Promised Land described as a land flowing with milk and honey, but here is a detail most people never learn. Many scholars believe that the honey in that famous phrase was not, in most cases, honey from bees at all. It was date honey, a thick, dark, sweet syrup pressed from ripe dates, one of the most treasured foods of the ancient Near East. Date palms lined the oases and the riverbanks all through the land of the Bible. The word for the palm, Tamar, became a woman's name. And when the crowds welcomed Jesus into Jerusalem, it was palm branches they waved in the air. Now, why should the date matter to you today? A date gives you a moderate amount of iron, but it pairs that iron with natural fruit sugars for a genuine, honest lift of energy, along with potassium for your heart and fiber for your digestion. When that mid-afternoon tiredness creeps in and you feel yourself reaching for a cookie, 2 or 3 soft dates will do the job far better, lifting you up without dropping you back down an hour later. Try a couple of medjool dates with a small handful of nuts as your afternoon treat. It is ancient fast food, in the very best sense of those words. And now we reach number 6, and here I want to give you 2 foods together because they appear side by side in Scripture, the almond and the pistachio. In the book of Genesis, when the famine was severe and old Jacob sent his sons back down to Egypt, he told them to fill their bags with the best fruits of the land as a gift, and he named them, and among them were almonds and pistachios, treasures precious enough to place before the ruler of Egypt. The almond carries an even deeper meaning. When God chose Aaron and his family to serve as priests, he had Aaron's wooden staff bud and blossom and bear ripe almonds overnight, a dead stick brought back to life as the sign of his choosing. And the almond tree is the very first tree to wake and bloom at the end of winter in the land of Israel, which is why the prophet Jeremiah saw an almond branch and heard God say he was watching over his word to perform it. For your body, almonds bring iron alongside magnesium, vitamin E, and the kind of healthy fats that support both the heart and the aging brain. A small handful a day is all you need. And if your teeth are not what they once were, do what people have done for centuries and soak them overnight in water, which softens them beautifully and makes them even gentler to eat. There is something fitting about the tree that wakes first in spring, feeding a body that is looking for its energy again. At number 5, we have the fig, and specifically the dried fig pressed into cakes. Here is a story of wisdom you may not know. When David and his hungry men were marching in anger toward a foolish, insulting man named Nabal, it was Nabal's wife, the wise and quick Abigail, who rode out to meet them and stopped a bloodbath. And what did she bring, along with her wise words? 200 cakes of pressed figs and 100 clusters of raisins, among other food. Figs and raisins literally helped keep the peace that day. The fig is woven all through Scripture, from the fig leaves in the Garden of Eden to the fig tree that Jesus so often spoke of, and it too is named among the 7 glories of the Promised Land. Pressed and dried into a cake, the fig was the ancient world's energy bar, easy to carry, slow to spoil, and packed with nourishment. For you, dried figs concentrate a real dose of iron, together with calcium for your bones, potassium for your heart, and gentle fiber for easy digestion. Just 2 or 3 dried figs make a lovely snack, or you can chop them into your morning oatmeal or a bowl of yogurt. Keep the fig in mind, because in just a moment you are going to hear how a fig cake, together with raisins, once brought a dying man back to life. But first, I promised you a story, so let me stop here and tell it, because I think you need to hear it. There was a prophet named Elijah, and he had just come through the greatest day of his life. On Mount Carmel, he had stood alone against hundreds of false prophets and seen the fire of God fall from heaven, a total victory. And yet, the very next thing that happens is this. A wicked queen named Jezebel sends word that she will have him killed by the next day, and Elijah, the mighty prophet, is suddenly terrified and completely empty. He runs. He runs for a full day out into the wilderness, and then he collapses under a lone broom tree, one of the only bits of shade for miles in that desert. And he prays a prayer that some of you have quietly prayed yourselves. It is enough, Lord. Take my life. I am no better than anyone who came before me. And then, worn down to nothing, he falls asleep. Now watch very carefully what God does, because it is not what we might expect. God does not scold him. God does not deliver a lecture about faith or fear. Instead, an angel simply reaches down and touches him and says, "Get up and eat." And when Elijah looks, there beside his head is a warm cake of bread baked on hot stones and a jar of cool water. So he eats a little, and he lies back down and sleeps again. And the angel comes a second time and touches him and says something so tender it can bring tears. "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you." And Scripture tells us that on the strength of that food, Elijah walked 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God. Sometimes, before God will speak to the deepest part of us, he first lets us sleep, and he feeds us. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing a bone-weary person can do is eat a good meal and get some rest. So, let me ask you gently, have you ever felt like Elijah under that tree, so tired you could hardly imagine going on? If you have, hear this. That kind of tired is not a failure of faith, and it is not weakness. Sometimes the body is simply running low and asking, quietly, to be fed. Now, with that in our hearts, let's continue. At number 4, we have the pomegranate. And this is where I give you the little trick I promised you at the very beginning. First, the wonder of this fruit in Scripture. When God gave the design for the robe of the high priest, he commanded that its hem be ringed all the way around, with embroidered pomegranates in blue and purple and scarlet, with small golden bells hanging between them, so that the priest was crowned in fruit and sound as he went in before the Lord. When the 12 spies returned from the promised land, carrying proof of its richness, they brought back grapes and figs and pomegranates. There is even an old Jewish tradition that a single pomegranate holds 613 seeds, matching the 613 commandments of the law, and though honest people who have actually counted the seeds will tell you the number varies, the meaning endures. A fruit bursting with life and blessing. Now, here is your trick. The pomegranate itself carries only a modest amount of iron, but it is rich in vitamin C, and vitamin C is the key that unlocks the door. The iron in plants, in your lentils and beans and greens, is harder for the body to absorb on its own, but when you eat it together with vitamin C, your body can absorb dramatically more of it, several times more. And there is a flip side worth knowing. A strong cup of tea or coffee taken right alongside your meal can block a large share of that same iron, sometimes more than half. So here is the golden, practical wisdom in one sentence. Squeeze a little pomegranate or a little lemon over your beans, your lentils, your greens, and save the tea or coffee for an hour or so after the meal instead of during it. The ancient people paired these foods together without ever knowing the chemistry. Now you know it. Now we come to number 3, the raisin. And now I can finish that story I hinted at. Once, when David's men were pursuing raiders across the desert, they found a young Egyptian man collapsed and abandoned in a field. He had been left there to die, and he had not eaten a bite of food or drunk a drop of water for 3 days and 3 nights. So they gave him a piece of a fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, and Scripture puts it beautifully. He ate, and his spirit revived. That simple food, figs and raisins, literally brought the life back into a dying man. Raisins are nothing more than grapes with the water drawn out, which means everything good in them is concentrated. A moderate dose of iron, along with natural sugars for quick energy, potassium, and a wealth of protective antioxidants. They are a pocket-sized burst of life, and this is why Abigail carried 100 clusters of them, and why armies and travelers relied on them. A small handful of raisins is a perfect little lift, and if you want to be clever about it, eat them together with a few pumpkin seeds, which are surprisingly one of the richest iron foods there is. And you have a tiny, powerful snack. The same food that revived a fainting man in a field can quietly carry you through your afternoon. At number 2, we have chickpeas, sometimes called garbanzo beans. Picture this scene. David is fleeing for his life across the wilderness, and his people are with him, and Scripture says plainly that they were hungry and weary and thirsty. And then some faithful friends come out to meet them, and they bring wheat and barley and beans and lentils and honey and curds. Humble food carried out to weary people in the desert, and it revived them. Those simple pulses, the beans and lentils, were the quiet strength of ordinary people all through the Bible. A single cooked cup of chickpeas carries close to 5 milligrams of iron, and it brings along a generous amount of plant protein, folate, and fiber. For an older body, that combination is precious because it supports steady energy and helps you hold on to the muscle that too many of us lose as the years pass. And here is a wonderful pairing. When you make or buy hummus, you are blending chickpeas with tahini, which is ground sesame seed, and sesame is one of the most iron-dense foods on earth. So a bowl of hummus is quietly a double dose of iron, and a squeeze of lemon over the top, remember our trick, helps your body drink it all in. Chickpeas in a warm soup, chickpeas roasted for a crunchy snack, hummus with your vegetables, it is old food, and it is good food. And now, at last, we reach number 1, and it is the humble lentil, and it wears the crown for a reason. Let me tell you the trade I promised you at the very start. In the book of Genesis, Esau, the older twin, the strong hunter, comes in from the open country one day utterly famished, feeling, as he says himself, at the point of death from hunger. And there is his younger brother Jacob, calmly cooking a pot of red lentil stew, and the smell of it is more than Esau can bear. So Jacob makes a cold offer. Give me your birthright, your inheritance as the firstborn, your blessing, your entire future, and the stew is yours. And in that weak, desperate, hungry moment, Esau says, "What good is a birthright to me if I die of hunger?" And he trades it all away for one single bowl of soup. Scripture says he ate and drank and got up and went on his way, and so he despised his birthright. That red stew even gave Esau his other name, Edom, which means red. Never in all of history has one bowl of soup cost a man so much. And yet, what a food it is! A single cooked cup of lentils carries around 6.5 milligrams of iron, which on paper stands right up beside a serving of beef. On top of that iron, lentils are the richest source of folate of any plant food there is, a vitamin your body needs to build healthy red blood cells, and they bring protein and gentle fiber besides. For tired blood, there may be no more complete, more affordable, more faithful package in your whole kitchen, and they are so easy on the body. A warm bowl of lentil soup, simple and cheap, with a bright squeeze of lemon stirred in for that vitamin C boost, and the tea, saved for later, is close to the perfect meal for anyone fighting fatigue. Esau gave up his future for a single bowl. You can simply enjoy yours, and let it quietly do your body good. So, as we come to the end, look at what we have seen. From Esau's bowl of stew, to the bread the angel gave Elijah under the broom tree, to the figs and raisins that revived a dying man in the field, the scriptures keep whispering the same quiet, tender truth. God does not despise the weary. He feeds them. Now let me be honest and careful with you, because I care about you. These foods are not magic, and they are not medicine. No single food cures anything, and food is never a replacement for your doctor. If your tiredness is deep or new, or just will not lift, please go and have your iron levels checked, because that is a simple test and it is worth doing. But within that wisdom, there is real, God-given goodness in these oldest of foods, the lentils and the chickpeas, the raisins and the pomegranate, the figs and the almonds, the dates and the barley. And the beautiful thing is how many of them are probably already sitting in your kitchen this very moment, waiting. If any of this has blessed you today, or reminded you of something worth remembering, a simple like helps these words find their way to another tired soul who needs them. And if you would like to keep walking through this kind of ancient wisdom with me, I would be honored to have you subscribe. And now, before you go, I truly want to hear from you, so let me leave you with one question, and please answer it in the comments just below. Of all the foods we talked about today, which one is already sitting in your kitchen right now, and which one surprised you the most? Tell me. I will be reading.